Revelia is when he was younger, so he didn't wear kapata. He wore black pants and a white shirt, and he was once leaning over the water fountain taking a drink, and a bocher walked by and mistook him for another bocher. So he gave him a flick. Sometimes you sneak out behind somebody, give him a flick. So the normal instinct of a person is to quickly spin around to see who did it. He didn't budge, and he said, "Please go away. I don't want to see who did it." And then there was the story with in the olden days when you called on a payphone, there was a live operator sometimes there telling you when you got to put in another nickel to pay for your phone call. So a boy went a little bit over, so the operator quickly called back the payphone and said, "You need to put in another nickel." And the boy didn't want it; he just hung up. There was a boy from yeshiva in a payphone in the yeshiva. So the operator calls back again, and the boy figured he'll have fun. And he answers the phone, "Humphrey's Funeral Home, always at your service." And the operator called back 3 or 4 times. He kept answering that way. So the operator was frustrated, and the operator had to find some way to get the customer to put money in. So she looked up that phone number, and she saw that at that same address, there were other numbers. So she called a different number at that address, and sure enough, Revelia Shrei picks up the phone, it was his office, and she tells him what's going on. So Revelia tells her, "You just give me 2 minutes, you'll have your nickel." And then Revelia calls the payphone, and again the bocher answers, "Humphrey's Funeral Home, always at your service." And Revelia says, "You better put in the nickel right away, else you'll be using your service soon." And then he puts nickel in. Remember that story? You know that story over. A.B. Cohen said that over. Shkoyach Mati. Okay, Kavaltim. So yesterday we learned about the 2 Nazirim, and one of these 2 Nazirim had become Tamei. How do they deal with the Karbanos? So we said they bring 2 Karbanos after the first 30 days of Tumah, one of Tumah and a Tyra, and they say, if you're the Tumah guy, you do the Tumah. If I'm the Tumah guy, I do the Tumah. And then they both keep another 30 days, and then they bring only one carbon to Tahira, and they say whoever is the guy who really is the Nazir right now, because he was Tumah in the first round, he will be the one whose carbon it is. Then the Gemara ran into the problem of, okay, that solves the carbon problem, but they have to make a lot of haircuts, a lot of extra akofis, and that will be a problem. Zak the Gemara, it's speaking either, Shmuel said it's speaking by either women or a cotton who are not restricted by the halacha of Yosy Kivu. And the Gemara said maybe Shmuel said his halacha in the complex case that we're going to learn soon, that we learned already, with the one Nazir who was a Suffolk Mitzayra, Suffolk Tomei, where he also needed 6 taglachasin. He needed 4 taglachasin. Once again, we only know for sure that he needs 1. We don't know if he became Tomei. We don't know if he became a Mitzayra. That's also each of the cut, because otherwise he wouldn't be able to have that haircut, which again is Shmuel. So the Gemara says from the fact that Shmuel says that, it means that he holds hakafa as kol harosh, Shmuel hakafa, and the hakafa required by a mitzvah, hakafa required by a nazir would for sure violate the law. Then we had the question, we had the machlokes, a very important machlokes between Rav Huna and Rav Ada bar Ava. Rav Huna held that you were not allowed to cut the hair off a cotton. It would be usher for a man to cut the hair of a cotton. It's usher. However, a noshim who are not mitzvah are allowed to give children haircuts. Are allowed to cut off their payas. Rav Ada bar Ava held that any person who's not mechuyev, anybody can cut their payas. So any person can cut off the payas of a cotton. But he told Rav Huna, if you hold that an adult may not cut off the payas of a cotton, neither would a woman be able to do that. Okay. Then we had the shaila of whether hakafas kol harosh, this shaila that came up earlier, shaving one's whole head, does that violate the halacha of Yosy Kivu? The Gemara thought to make it be totally in the machlokes tanoim between whether or not you learn from Roishai. By Mitzayra, it says you have to cut off all your hair, and then it itemizes Roishai and Zakana. So one time it learns from Roishai, we learn even though you're not allowed to cut your payas, Kamash Malon Roishai, you're allowed to cut your payas if you're a Mitzayra. That's what one time I said. The other time I said, no, Roishai tells you Kamash Malon if you're a Nazir, and there's a Loisha and an Asay, only that's where you can cut off your payas. To tell you that you can cut off your payas due to a lav only, we know a Seidoich HaLoisha already from a different source. We know it from Gedilim Tasalacha by the Pasha of Tzitzis. The Pasha of Tzitzis is placed directly near the Pasha of shatnez to tell us that tzitzis, you're allowed to use tzitzis even if it's of shatnez, meaning the assay of tzitzis will be doicha the loishis of shatnez. That's how we know the base halacha of assay doicha loishis. But according to the Mandamar who uses Rosh Hashanah to tell you that a regular yid can take a haircut, he learns obviously assay doicha loishis from the case of Mitzayra. So he needs another limud to learn from the fact that the Torah put Tzemer and Pishtim together with the halacha of Shatnez, with the halacha of Tzitzis, to teach you that Tzemer and Pishtim, strings of Tzemer and Pishtim work for any type of beged. However, if you have strings of any other type of fabric, they're only good for a beged of that same fabric. Okay, let's see where we got up to. So I think we got down to the bottom of Nun Ches Amud Aleph, and we were going through we have two positions now. We have one position who learns Roshai to teach you that Asay Doicha Loishaseh, and from Gedil and Tasnelcha he learns that tzitzis of Tzemer and Pishtim can be used for any type of beged. And we had the other Mandamar who knows Asay Doicha Loishaseh from Gedil and Tasnelcha, and from Roshai we learn that by Tzaras an Asay is Doicha even a Loishaseh V'asay, right? So now we need to know, how does the other guy know? The guy who learned Roshai for Asay Doicha Loishaseh, how does he know that by Mitzayra, even if the guy's a Nazir, how do you know that Asay is doicha even a loisav Asay? So I think that's where I believe we're up to. So we're up to about 6 lines from the bottom on Nun Ches Amud Aleph. The high tanu the bafak leroishay the lav greda the Asay Asay the dochi is loisav Asay minalon. How does he know that by Mitzayra Asay will be doicha loisav? Zok the Gemara nafkalim izikna. He could learn it from the fact that when the Torah lists off by the Mitzayra that he has to cut all the hair of his body, it specifies Roshai, which is for Asay Doicha Loishaseh, and it also specifies Ziknoi, which will teach us Loishaseh Asay. How does Ziknoi teach us Loishaseh Asay? The time we learned Ziknoi. Ma Talmud Loimer. Why did the Torah have to itemize Ziknoi if we already know that he has to cut all his hair? By a kohen, it says he's not allowed to cut his beard, and we know that it's referring to cutting it off with a tar. And we know by a kohen, not only is there this loishaseh, there's also an asay of kedoshim tiyu. So there's many reasons asays and loishasehs telling a kohen not to cut his hair. Yet the mitzayra is commanded to cut his hair. Yochel kohen mitzayra kain. You might think even a kohen mitzayra does not have to cut his hair. Talmud Loimer Ziknai. The Torah is telling you specifically, even though there's a loishaseh of asay saying to the kohen, do not cut your hair. The Torah says by mitzayra zikonai, you should cut your hair. So there's a list of asay there. Zok the Gemara, the other Tana who learned that from Roshai it's referring to a Nazir where there's a loisa and an asay. Well, I have redundancy because I have ziknai as well. Leilaf miziknai. Why can't he learn from ziknai? So then Roshai is going to be extra because ziknai, it seems to be a very good proof that the asay of mitzayra is doicha the loisa of asay of kohen. For the Gemara, it's a very good question, but I don't know why you're attacking me. Even according to you, you're going to have a problem. The Kaimalon Ba'alma, we know by Mitzayra, yes, you can be doicha loisa of asay, but everywhere else in the Torah, we say asay doicha loisa. But nobody agrees that b'chol Torah kula you say asay doicha loisa of asay. But the problem is, why wouldn't kohen be a source l'chol Torah kula? You're asking me, why do I need a pasuk of Rosh to tell me that Mitzayra is the taglachas of Mitzayra is doicha Nazir? I could know it from the fact that the taglachas of Mitzayra is doicha kohen. I'll ask you a better question. According to you, you also agree that this is a specific halacha by Mitzayra that he has to cut his hair, even though there's a loisha and a say telling him not to. But b'chol Torah kula, nobody holds asay doicha loisha v'asay. Why can't you know it from Zekanai? So b'chol Torah kula also asay v'doicha loisha v'asay leilach mikoyin d'dachi. Ella, what are you going to have to tell me? Why you can't use koyin Mitzayra as a source to chol Torah kula that asay is doicha loisha v'asay? Because the isurim of a kohen are weaker isurim than the regular lav anywhere else in the Torah. Why are the isurim of a kohen a weaker lav? Any isurim associated with the kohen are lav she'ein shaveh b'koil. They don't apply to everybody. They're not universal lavin. They apply to a specific part of Klal Yisrael. They apply to Kohanim. That's inherently a weakness. So therefore, yes, we know by a kohen mitzvah that the assay is doicha loisav assay, but I would not necessarily apply that with a binyan to all other loisav assays that are more powerful that apply to everybody. So once you say that, I can say that. Why? That's why I need a special pasuk that a Nazir mitzvah will still get a haircut, and I'll say Nazir mikoyin namer loyalev shekin lav shein yishav b'koyin. So you need this svara anyway as to why I shouldn't apply the Chol Kula. I can apply it to Nazir. So you see from here that the Gemara holds that a Nazir is a lav hashava b'koyin, because even though not everybody is a Nazir, but everybody could become a Nazir. So Nazir is considered a lav hashava b'koyin. Now, of course, we're going to have a question in 1 minute. According to the Mandam, uses Ziknai to tell you that mitzvah is the you can't export that to Chalatar Kula because the lav shein shabbat b'koil. But if you learn, like the other Tana, that you learn even Nazir from Roshai, so how come he doesn't learn the Chalatar Kula? So Gemara is going to have to deal with that. Mandamukim lahai Roshai ben Nazir, lamali Ziknai. Why do I need Ziknai? If you're telling me that Roshai is tells you that the assay will even be doicha alav hashava b'koil, so then why do I need the pasuk by Mitzvah to tell you that the kohen needs to cut his beard? If I could note from Nazir, because Nazir is an ain't hashava b'koil. Madich Mitzvah, the assay of Mitzvah is doicha the lav of Nazir, which is shava b'koil. Surely it should be doicha the issue for the kohen to cut his hair, to cut his beard, because it's a lav she'ein hashava b'koil. So the man the book of the high Roshai ben Nazir lamali ziknai. He needs it to teach you a different halacha. And in short, the halacha is, how do you know that the giluach of a mitzvah needs to be with a tar, with a razor? Maybe it could be with a scissor. We had this exact Gemara once before. The way we know that by mitzvah, the chiyuv of taglachas is dafka with a tar is because of zakanai. And let's watch the brayso fear that ois. And I'm gliding into the Bach who takes out this entire bracket. That's what it says by a kohen. You would have thought that the chiyuv, the isser of shaving your beard, is even with the scissors. When the Torah is talking about the isser for a regular Yisrael, they cut his beard. The wording uses lois tashchis, hashchasa. A scissors doesn't cut so close that it would be considered hashchasa. So lois tashchis. What if I yanked out the hairs with the tweezers? I did laser hair removal. That should be chayiv as well, because that is mashchris, the sar completely. Talmud loimer by the kohen upaskonim lo yigalechu. It has to have a giluach feature to it. Ezo giluach sheish by hashchasa. So since the Torah expresses it by a kohen using the word giluach and by Yisrael using the word hashchasa, we learn they're both one and the same. It has to be a giluach that also totally removes the hair. Hava oimer zetar, the closest possible shave with a shaving device that is considered hashchasa would be tar. Now, since the Torah tells you that a special limud, that even a kohen who is prohibited from shaving his beard, even a kohen, a mitzvah, could shave his beard. Why is that necessary? If to be yoytze the chiyuv of giluach of mitzvah, I can cut with any type of thing. I can use a hair cutting machine. Why b'chalal is it a stira? Why do I need the Torah telling me that a kohen who's a mitzvah can shave his beard? It's not a violation. Cut it with the scissors. The teretz is, you see from here alone that the Torah is saying no. The only way to fulfill your requirement of the taglachas of the mitzvah is the same method of cutting that is usher by a kohen. So it's really a limud to mitzvah that the way you have to do the taglachas by mitzvah is with a razor. So that's what you need zakanoi for, but according to the Mandamar who learns asay doich elosav asay from Roshai. Zakanoi is teaching you that a mitzvah has to cut with a tar. Going back to the other Mandamar who learns that Roshai teaches you asay doich elosav, because from Zakanoi alone, mashka lemetchi lav greda, umashma lemetchi loisav asay. Hilchach shakalu v'yavo shnei. Therefore, you should learn both. And Tosfos in the second shot explains that it's mikra malay dibar hakasa. When it says Roshai, everybody agrees that Roshai means the head of everybody. It doesn't make a difference if you're a regular Yisrael. It doesn't make a difference if you're a Nazir. Everybody's head has to be shorn if they're a Mitzayra. So therefore, really, from both Sukkim, Roshai and Skanai, you already learned that everybody, no matter what their situation is, has to have the taglachas, which means you'll know asay the chaloisese and you'll know asay the chaloisese asay. So why do you need both? Zok the Gemara, koyin mi nazir lo yalef. We already know why. Sheken yesh nay b'sheila. I'm sorry, that we don't know yet. Koyin mi nazir lo yalef. But only if it said nazir, I wouldn't know koyin. You know why? Because nazir has a weakness as well. If the Torah only told you the Roshai, which includes a nazir as well, I wouldn't know that by a koyin the asay would be loicha loishav asay. You know why? Because maybe nazir is a weaker type of loishav. Maybe the yisurim for a nazir to cut a seir are weaker. You know why they're weaker? Because you can easily be shoyal on your naziris and eliminate it. So in general, because of that, the yisurim of naziris are weaker. Maybe those yisurim are going to be trumped by the mitzayir's chiv of taglachas. So therefore, if it would say nazir, I wouldn't know koyin. What about koyin? It should say koyin, I won't know nazir. So we already have the answer to that question. Nazir b'koyin layalev shekin lav shein neshavah b'koil. If I only knew that the taglachas of mitzayir trumps the Israel b'shchos zoking by a koyin, well, that's a lav shein neshavah b'koil. Once again, I wouldn't know nazir. So I need both. Uba alma lo yalfina minayu. And therefore, and you can't learn l'chalat kula that I say deichalois of asay mishum deikal mivachid amra. You can't learn from nazir because nazir is yeshnei b'sheila. Who said every other isser would also be overruled by an asay, and you can't learn from koyin because koyin is a lav she'ein neshavah b'koil. So everybody's going to ask whenever you have two different limudim that we give a reason for why each one alone cannot be a source of a limud. Learn it mishneim right? Zok the Gemara, Zok Tosfos is a beautiful halacha that shaving your beard is a mitzvah of shalom bayis. Did you know that there's a mitzvah of shalom bayis to shave your beard? Did you know that? That's what I'm saying. I'm saying it's very partisan. I'm saying it's a mitzvah of shalom bayis. How do I know that from? Tosfos asked the kasha. Tosfos asked, how come you can't learn from mitzvah that say it trumps the asay of mitzvah of the asay of taglachas mitzvah? Sai trumps koyin, sai trumps nazir. So I bazai tarashavish and they trumpet. So Tosfos malim mitzvah shekain shalom bayis. It doesn't mean shaving your beard shalom bayis. I'm using it for that. What it means is a mitzvah is separated from his wife. So there's such an urgency to bring him back together with his wife. So it trumps everything because no matter what loisha says involved, there you could say everything's trumped. Why? Because we want to bring shalom bayis. Right? Because Baruch Hu's happy to have his name wiped out to clear the name of a soita so that there'll be shalom bayis. So I just misconstrued it to say the taglachas of mitzvah, is shalom bayis. So I read it right from the shaving shalom bayis. Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes the longer he's a mitzvah, that's good for shalom bayis. The Gemara didn't think of that time. Okay, gewaltig. Okay, gewaltig. Zok the hele Gemara weiter. So I'll just look at those words inside of Tosfos because I like the Tosfos. Tosfos says over here, Mala say the mitzvah the ika shalom bayis. It's like 3 or 4 lines from the bottom. That say mitzvah involves shalom bayis. So if you see that the asay of mitzvah of taglachas is doich other yisurim, you can't bring a raya anywhere else because shalom bayis gives it a strong urgency. Gewaltig. Amarav, make al adam kol gufe betar. A person is allowed to shave his hair on his whole goof with a tar if he's too hairy. Meisvei. Frag the Gemara Kasha. There's a problem of lisilbash. Hamaver beisa shachiu beisa erbo. If someone takes the hair off of their privates, underarm, and their pubic hair, hareza like it. They get malchus. So how could you tell me you could be making a guva betar? It's a chiyav lav. Zok the Gemara, no. Ha betar, ha b'misparayim. Where is it? Where do you get malchus if you use a tar? If you use a scissor, it's allowed. But Rav Nami B'tar Kalmar, Rav specifically said that if you use a tar, it's mutter. So Gemara Ka'ain tar, he meant Ka'ain tar. If you actually use a razor, that's going to be usher, and you get malchus for it. However, if you have too much hair and you want to lighten up, that's allowed, even a close shave, but not using a tar. How could you say you get malchus for that? You don't get malchus for an issue d'Rabbanan. It's malchus mardus. So there's no law to shave those places. Rather, it's only an issue d'Rabbanan. I shouldn't say only, it's an issue d'Rabbanan. Ikadamri, Amr Abchi Bar Abba, Amr Rabbi Yochanan, Hamaver Beis HaShechi, Ubeis HaErva, Loike Mishum Lo Yilbash Gever Simos Isha. It is a deraisa. Meisvei, I we looked at Bryce, I already said, any Torah, Ela Medivis, right? The Gemara Huda Amr, Ki Aitana, the Tanya Hamaver Beis HaShechi, Ubeis HaErva, Harez Oiver Mishum Lo Yilbash Gever Simos Isha. So you see, it's a deraisa with Tanakama. Hi Lo Yilbash Gever My Dorish Bay. So we have a machloikis if it's a deraisa d'Rabbanan. So according to the Tanakama, what does he do with the iser of lo yilbash? He uses it for the following. It says lo kli gever alisha. My Talmud Leimer. What is it teaching us? Shalo yilbash ish simlas isha. A man is not allowed to wear the clothing of a woman. The isha simlas ish, and the isha is not allowed to wear the clothing of a man. Break the Gemara, Harekvar Nemar To'evahi. It says To'evahi regarding this Yilbash. The Einkan To'eva, Ella. What is the To'eva? The To'eva is Ella Shalo Yilbash is Shimlas Isha, the Yeshev Bein Hanoshim, the Isha Simlas Ish, the Seishev Bein Ha'anosh. That's the problem. The problem is if someone wants to use the dress of the opposite gender to blend with the opposite gender, that's where there's a problem. In other words, woke is broke. In other words, no drag. Drag is not allowed. Drag is a deraisa, and it's called to'eva. There's no politically correct way to say this. It's outright to'eva. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, minayin shelo yisei she'isha b'chli zayin lemilchama. How do you know that a woman has no business walking around with an M16? Talmud Leimer lo yekli gever al isha v'lo yilbash gever simos isha shlo yisaka nish b'sikune isha. So there's many different halachas that we've just covered. So I just want to throw out some ideas. Amr Rab Nachman ben Nazir mutter v'les hilchas akavasei.
What about kala mechupasa in the mechames mitzvah? They're supposed to be involved in mechama.
So I'll start with that first. First and foremost, there's many roles that a woman can take in a mechama without walking around with an M16 or driving a tank. So this shaila of women in the army is a whole big shaila. But there's Rav Moshe was asked the shaila in the 80s. Rav Moshe Feinstein was asked the shaila in the 80s, is a woman allowed to carry a gun? And it was referring to, there's places in there, Yisrael, where it's very dangerous. Are you allowed to carry a gun? So Rav Moshe paskined unequivocally that a woman is for sure allowed to carry a handgun. Because when this Gemara says Klei Milchama, it doesn't mean a handgun. It means an M16. It means a rocket-propelled grenade. It means serious military things that are things for a man. But a handgun, she says it's important that the women get trained in how to use a handgun. So even though the Chetchila, it would be better if she has to go through dangerous areas, she goes with a man, and the man carries a handgun. Nevertheless, you can't restrict women to always go with another man. Sometimes that is a problem with sneeze. So avada, if there's a sakon involved, avada, a woman is allowed to train and use a handgun. That's what Moshe Paskin. The army, besides the fact that there's a problem of them carrying big, heavy-duty military equipment, there's the whole shaila in general of whether or not they're allowed to go to the army. That's a shaila that I don't know if Rav Moshe discussed. But yeah, so there's a difference between going into the army and doing male things, specifically b'chlei zayin l'mochama, and not. But then there's the whole shaila. There's many different facets to this halacha that we learned. So there's cutting hair. So really, you're not allowed to cut hair anywhere on your body. That's the way a woman works, because women normally take their hair off, not men. So there's that issue. But it's a lot more chomer. It's a lot more chomer on those two places, the Beis HaShechi and the Beis HaErva. I mean, we have a tzad that it's even a lav, because we had machlokas tanoim, right? The Tano here, one Tano said it's enim b'divrei Torah, elam b'divrei soifrin. But we have another Tano who says that it's a lav of a yilbas gever simos isha. So that's very chomer. The poskim are very makbid on Beis HaShechi and Beis HaErva. There's a discussion in the Rishonim if someone has a very bad rash and it will heal faster if you shave it clean, because the hair, I guess, it brings moisture and other things. So there, I believe there's a Chuvas Rashba who says their avada would be allowed because it's l'refuah. It's not to cause any lewd behavior. But then you have the Isser, another Isser lav of lo yilbash gever. Lo yilbash means you're not allowed to wear female clothing. That's mamish drag. Drag is 100% osir. It's 100% osir. However, what about like unisex stuff, like a big rain bonnet? That would likely be allowed, as well as what if it's pouring, raining, and you need to go to the car? Are you allowed to use your wife's raincoat, even though it's a female raincoat? So they're pashtus. I'm not pasking halacha l'maisa. You're allowed to squeeze it on, but there you're allowed to, because you're not really using it as a clothing to dress up like a woman. You're just trying to protect yourself from the rain. But I remember when I was a younger man, Reb Shmuel invited my wife and I to spend Shabbos by him, and we were sitting there by the table, and he had a woman guest in his house, and she was wrapped up in a cozy bathrobe, and she was talking about how her geschmack bathrobe is so cozy on these cold Friday nights, and she tells Reb Shmuel, I found this, I got a good price, it's a man's bathrobe, and I found it in the store, and I'm wearing it, and it's so geschmack. Reb Shmuel says, you must go right now and take it off. So by the student, she had to run to her room, and she had to take off the bathrobe. You must take it off right away. You may not wear a man's bathrobe. So that was a clear psak halacha that a woman is not allowed to wear a man's bathrobe. A man couldn't wear a woman's bathrobe anyway, like Mother says, it likely wouldn't fit. So there's the halachas of clothing, and then there's also the halachas of mannerisms and doing things that are for a woman, doing things that are male, like engaging in war and holding heavy duty equipment that are normally for a man. So these are all the different areas that are all serious shilas that you have to ask before you can do anything like that. And you don't have to tell me if you have such a shilah, if you want to dress up like a woman. I don't need to know about it. You could discuss it directly with Rabbi Lowy. Purim is also a problem. Yeah, Purim is also a problem. Okay, so let's go back a little bit. Okay? I ripped through this more. Let's go back and we'll be mamshach. So Zok Gemara. Because there's an issue the rise of Yilbash, the Gemara has the kasha, it's only with the Besoifin. So the Gemara is a machlokes tanoim. Who damer kaitana the tanya. Hamaber is a shechel this ever. Harei zoifin mishum Yilbash. Gever some mosisha. The Tanakama. How Yilbash gever my dorish pay. What did the Tanakama use Yilbash if it's only a drabanon? We boy lechem tanya lo yekli gever alisha. My tamad leimer. Im shelo Yilbash is simosisha veisha simosish. Harei krei damer taeva. Ben kan taeva elo. Shelo Yilbash is simosisha veisha ben anoshim. Veisha simosish veisha ben anoshim. That is Tayeva, precisely what wokeism is, that there's no difference between the genders, and I can use your bathroom, you can use my bathroom. That is directly what the Torah directly addresses as a Tayeva. So from al Isha, I learned that a woman can't even go out in military dress with military equipment. A person shouldn't use the utensils of a woman. He has to use manly things. There's even a shaila at the bottom of Tosfos if a man's allowed to use a mirror. So we're going to see that. We're going to see as well about using a mirror. We'll see that in a minute. Okay. Amar Rab Nachman ben Nazir mutter, as Toshva says, ben Nazir mutter laver beis hashechi beis erba. Of course, a Nazir who has to shave his whole body can cut everything. The Kosovar acharei shenazir maver kol sar roishoy loy chashav noy v'tikun lagabe oisay ish laver beis hashechi beis erba. So this is a very important point. When does it look like you're beautifying yourself, making yourself like a isha? That's if you only trim certain hairs of your body. There, that might look lewd. But if somebody is cutting off all the hairs of his body, that's definitely not done to look like an isha. So therefore, there's no problem with it. That's very, very important, as Tosha says. It's only relevant if he only trims those areas. That's a problem. Okay. The Asr Afal Nazir, it will be Asr even for a Nazir. Zog to Gemara weiter. Amr le Rabbanan le Rab Shimon bar Abba. Chazina le Rabbi Yochanan. I saw in Rabbi Yochanan the Leslie. He doesn't have hair. Pir Shar Beis Hashechi. I noticed in the mikveh. I was looking around in the mikveh and I noticed that Rabbi Yochanan doesn't have any hair by his underarms. Yet Rabbi Yochanan holds that it's also to cut off your hair. So how is it possible that he himself doesn't have? His hair fell out. It's not pshat that he cut it. His hair fell out. He's old. His hair fell out. And Tosfos makes an important observation. Why did the Gemara answer? He didn't use a razor. He used scissors. It must be that Rabbi Yochanan held that you're not even allowed to cut your underarm hair with a scissors, even if it's not with a razor, it would still be asur. But it fell out because of zikna. Here's a fascinating story. Somebody was mechuyev in Malchus in front of Rabami, and what happened was they had to take off his shirt to give him Malchus, and they were able to see his underarms. They saw he had weeds growing out from his underarms. So clearly this is an Erlich Hayit, because it must be that most people did shave their underarms in those days. And if he wasn't, then only Erlich Hayit didn't. Amar Lahan Rabami, Shivkua, let him be, Dain min Chavrayehu. He's one of the boys. If he's one of the boys, don't give him Malchus. So of course, the Achrayim ask, what does that mean? It's nepotism. You can avoid giving somebody Malchus because he's one of the boys. So they answer that it must have been Malchus Midrabanan, that they were enforcing something, and since he was a Talmid Chacham, they gave him the benefit of the doubt not to punish him that way. Because if he was Chayav Malchus Midaraisa, it doesn't make a difference what his underarms look like. It doesn't make a difference what his underarms look like. See, this is a new status symbol. You know, it used to be if a guy has a fancy car, so you're not going to bother him if he talks to you. Now, if you check him out in the mikveh and he has hair, don't start up with him. He's got hair under his arms, right? That's a Tanai status symbol. Are you allowed to cut? What type of hair are we talking about? We're talking about the hair of the underarms and of the Beis HaShechi. Let me just see it inside. I don't, but yeah, that was the shy. Right? It's before Amalei Aser. So he said it's Aser. Amalei Vaha Kagadol. But what am I supposed to do? They're growing long. They're bothering me. Vakagadol Zaktoshvus. Vahoyel Visoifai Ligadol Uletzara Isai Av Kishigachenu Ein Zakari Tikun Vinoi. Don't call what I'm cutting as Tikun Vinoi, which would fall under the Isser. Rather, I'm doing it so I shouldn't have tsar later on. So it shouldn't be a problem. Zog to Gemara, Amalei Aser, Amalei Vakagadol, but it's going to cause me tsar. Amalei Barpaxi Zman Yeshloi, Kol Zman Shu Gadol Noishar. So Zog to Gemara, when Amalei Barpaxi Zman Yeshloi, Kol Zman Shu Gadol Noishar. So I think it means if it grows, as it grows, it's going to fall out. Mehechatesi, that you're going to have to cut. Okay, so over here is where I think here's what I want is by Gvul, a little bit weiter. Zok the more weiter. Because a guy allowed to scratch it, and so he's not directly cutting it with a utensil. He's scratching it, but by scratching it, it's going to cause his hair to fall out. That's why you have beard hairs in all the Gemaras, because as the guys kratz, their beards end up in the Gemaras. So can a guy scratch and make his hair come out that way? Also, he said it's also the vigdima. What about the scratch through his beged and make it fall out that way? That would be mutter. It's indirect enough. Igud amri baymine betfila bevigdimai. Are you allowed to scratch your hair while you're davening? And maybe it's going to stir your davening. So let's have a look in the Tosfos. The Tosfos here has a little bit of a different girsa. He says gevul yeshloi she'eni gadol v'hoylech keser roish v'lekatzayra. So earlier written by Paxi zman yeshloi. Tosfos dashens gevul yeshloi, meaning it won't grow long enough to cause you tsar. Mashma kishe'ein adam eschaven lenoi ela linotzel the less bay mishum kligever. If a person's only getting rid of hair because it's protecting him from a terrible discomfort, that wouldn't be a violation. And here is a very important line. If you're going to look in the mirror, so you shouldn't hurt yourself. Meaning, if you're giving yourself a haircut and you want to look in the mirror so that you shouldn't cut yourself, you're allowed to. So we know Rav Shmuel Mavir gave himself haircuts, and he looked in the mirror while he was doing it, so he shouldn't cut himself. Nowadays, I think it's the derech even for men to look in the mirror, but in those days it was considered lo yilbash. Only women looked in mirrors. But if you're looking in the mirror, not for noi, but so you shouldn't cut your ear off while you're giving yourself a haircut, you would be allowed to. So once again, what we're seeing from this Gemara is that if it's cutting it off for the purposes of noi, that's a deraisa or a potential deraisa. But if it's to prevent a problem, tsar, that's for sure not a problem. That's if the mirror was allowed, and that's a gvul yeshloi. He even told him that if there's going to be tsar, ein chanami. But if there's no tsar, if it's just for noi, then it's going to be also. But for tsar, it's allowed. Okay, zok to Gemara weiter. I'm sorry. Let's see. Mal lochav l'schachich. Again, why you're scratching? But you're not doing it with a shaver. But less hilchas kavase. Okay. Zok to Heilige Gemara. Yeah. So let's look at the Mafarish where he says, what does it mean by tefillah? Klemer mispal mal lochach bebigdoi kidei sheyiplu kinim imenu. Sorry, that was the question. A guy has lice in his hair and it's itchy, so can he scratch with his yarmulke to get the dandruff out of his hair? So since he's not touching his basar, it's mutter. So you're allowed to scratch through a beged, and it's not called like you touched something that was inappropriate, and that it wouldn't be a problem. Okay, we have 3 minutes, and let's see if we can learn this stuff. It's an easy stuff. Meis echad mahen. If you have 2 nazirim and one of them became tamei, so we had a perfect solution how you do it with karbonos. But what if one of them died? So now there's only one guy left. So what is he supposed to do? How does he discharge the chiyuvim of his naziris? How does he discharge the karbonos? He can't bring 2 sets of karbonos. He might not be tamei, right? Or he might not be Torah. So I'm Rabbi Shua, what he should do is yivakesh echad v'nashok. He's going to have to find a volunteer sheyidar connected ben Nazir that will make a series of nadarim of Nazir that will balance him out as follows. V'omer im tamei hayisi. If I was tamei, then harei ata Nazir miyad. Then you should be mekabel upon yourself in Naziris right now. So be mekabel upon yourself in Naziris tonight. If my friend is tamei, then I want to be mekabel Naziris right now. Now, what's going to happen is at the end of the 30 days, I could bring the karbonos to Tahira, and he could bring the karbonos to Tuma. But if Torah, you see, but if you're Torah all along, then Harayat Nazir Achar Shloshim Yoy. So the second guy's going to say, if you're Tameh, I'm a Nazir now, so that I could be the one who uses the karbonos Tahira. But if it turns out that you're really Tahar now, then I want to be the Kabul Naziris in 30 days after your Naziris expires. So that will allow him to bring the second set of karbonos. So he'll be the counterbalance to the person who survived. And therefore, v'soifin shloishim yom, you'll count 30 days. After the 30 days, you're going to bring a mavin carbon toma, but carbon tahira. It'll be simple. Imanihu atame, If the original guy, the original Nazir is Tameh, then Karban Tameh Shali, the Karban Tayar Shalach, because then your Kabbalas Naziris was going to be concurrent with my first 30 days. V'im Aniu Atar, but if I'm Tar, then you're really not a Nazir at all then Karban Tayar Shali, the Karban Tumah Besafik, and the Karban Tumah is going to be a problem. The Karban Tumah is going to be a problem. And then the V'sayvin Shloshim Yom, you wait another 30 days, Umavin Karban Tayar, you bring a set of Karban Tayar, V'omer, and he says, Imani Atame, if I was Tameh the first round, then Karban Tumah Shali, the Karban Tayar Shalach, and the original Karban Tayar was yours. V'zeh, and this second set of Karban Tayar is Karban Tayar Rasi. The Maniu Atar, if I'm the one who's Tar, then Karban Tayar Shali, the Karban Tumah Besafik, V'zeh Karban Tayar Sach. So this at least deals with the sets of Karban Tayar, although the sets of Karban Tumah are a little bit of a problem. However, we're going to soon see you don't bring all the Karban, that you can just bring the Chatas Ha'oif, and that will be allowed, because you're allowed to bring a Chatas Ha'oif on the topic. Amar Ben Zayma. Ben Zayma told him, your idea is not a good idea. Who are you going to find that's going to be willing to help you out and be Makabal Nazirs for 60 days? Because he's going to have to keep the Nazirs for 60 days. Ella, you don't get anyone else involved. Ella, maybe Chatas Ha'oif, v'oilos behema. You just bring a Chatas Ha'oif and the oilos behema. Meaning, instead of bringing the full gamut of Karbanos to Tahira and the full gamut of Karbanos to Tumah, you bring one of each. Because he holds, as we had a shita before, that when you terminate your Naziris, it's enough if you bring one of the Karbanos and then you can terminate your Naziris. So you might not be Mekayim all of your halachas of Karbanos, but our main issue now is to get your Naziris to be terminated so that you can drink wine again. If I was Tameh at the end of the first 30 days, the Chatas Oif was a Chayv, and the oil that I'm bringing, which would have normally been for terminating a Nazir Tahira, since I'm not terminating my Nazir Tahira now, because I'm Tameh, it'll be in the Dava. But if it turns out that I'm Tar, then the oil will be discharging my Nazir of Tahira. The Allah is a Chatas Oif, you're allowed to bring Misafik. And then V'sayver Shloshim Yom, then he comes another 30 days, maybe Karban Tahira. Again, he only brings an oila. The oimer im tamei. You see, if I was tamei, ha'oila rishonin on the dava, v'zu chayva. Im Torah, you see, if I was always tar, then the oila rishonin was chayva for my naziris, v'zu nadava, and this is just an oilus nadava, v'zu sharkabani. Gewaltig. Amar Rabbi Yeshua, nimsa zeh maybe karbanos of the chatzayim. So Rabbi Yeshua said, well, that means you're going to bring half. You're only going to bring half of your karbanos. I'm sorry. Yeah, he shaves both times. Well, the problem is he can't shave both times, right? So we said it's being by a cotton or by Nisha, right? We still have a teretz. V'zu shar karbani, which means the last carbon here is still going to go back towards my original Naziris. So Zakir B'Shuda means you're splitting up half of your carbon you brought at the end of the 30 days, the other half you brought 60 days. The Gemara is going to ask, why is that a big deal? The Chama reminded to Ben Zaymer that this is the best way to do it. Don't get anybody else involved. What's Rabbi Yeshua's problem that he's going to end up bringing some of his karbanos after 30 days and some after 60 days? Why is that such a big deal? There's nothing wrong with it. He was just challenging them to see if they were thinking. According to Rabbi Yeshua, where you need to get another Nazir involved, right? Rabbi Yeshua was the guy, Rabbi Yeshua was the Tadu who said you got to get somebody else to make Naziris al Atnai. So what's going to happen is when they're bringing their karbanos, they have to bring them together and coordinate everything, because with the suffix, if this carbon is yours and if that carbon is mine, or vice versa. So in the process, the intestines of the animal are going to be sitting around waiting in the hot sun, and they're going to get spoiled. So what are we supposed to do with those? In other words, it's better not to have two people coordinating, because that always creates a little bit of a problem. Okay, we'll stop here. We'll tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow. So that we're basically caught up.